Hey, VTOL fan, I wanted to touch base with you again on a cool topic that we love to talk about, which is, of course, manufacturing, since that'll get us to scale and what'll be required to actually actualize air taxi operations. But I went back since we have the earnings call for Q1 of 2026 upcoming on Tuesday. And I went back and listened to the Q4 2025 call. And there was some couple little quotes that I thought were interesting specific to manufacturing, one of which we'll just flip over to here, which was a comment from Jobin. This was in the prepared remarks. And Jobin highlights that in 2026 is going to be a key inflection point for Joby. So after completing in 2025 a year of rigorous full transition flight testing and progress across all phases of certification and getting there, that they have meaningfully shifted focus. And so that focus is now going to go from how and when they're going to go to market to how many aircraft they can produce and where to deploy them. And I think what's so important about that is what takes it for them to actually get there as is. If they're starting to talk about producing and deploying them, it's key with needing to have a team, obviously, that's doing that in-house. So maybe you can give your feedback or touch base on some things that you've seen happen in and around manufacturing.
Yeah, I think that's been the sign that we've been looking for a long time to see, when is Joby confident enough to shift the manufacturing muscle into high gear. And you can start to see that if you just look at the Joby career site. You can see how many roles they're hiring in manufacturing, even in Dayton, where they've got like 13 or 14 open requisitions. And then in Joby, at their main core in San Jose and Santa Cruz and in the Marina area, they've basically gone to 3 shifts. So they've got their 6 a.m. to 4:30 shift. Then they've got their 4:30 to 3 a.m. shift. And then they have a third shift that goes from 10 p.m. to 8:30. I know it kind of overlaps in a weird way, but essentially it seems like they're going full tilt. So they seem pretty confident if they're hiring people to bring them on. I know there's a lot of steps still left with the FAA, but we've certainly seen a very confident Joby that's delivering on their end of 2025 poster board where they said 2026, we're ready. So it's exciting to see this. And I know you've been listening closely, to the calls and also just kind of like thumbing through all the HKs and contracts with Toyota. So what were your thoughts and sort of where do you think this is all headed?
Yeah, I think when we look at over time, something that's been really crucial, and I've tried to stress it as much as I could, and we both have about manufacturing, but outside of the aircraft itself being certified, the production line itself also must be certified. And over time, that's obviously been a crucial piece of the puzzle. That's something that the partnership that Toyota and Joby have been working on over time is to perfect that production, both how they're going to scale it and just to institute some of the lean manufacturing and other pieces that Toyota's leveraged within their automobile manufacturing, and to allow Joby to use some of those principles. But again, as you alluded to in some of the 8K filings, we've seen there's some pieces that are still redacted, yet to be determined, but that Joby, a part of the production process is Joby's, right? That's their IP. And then there's components that are Toyota's. And so again, it just leans on that strategic manufacturing alliance that they've talked about. But there was a really, I think, important little nugget that even I missed on the earnings call that was the Q4 2025. So that was just here in February. But this is going to be Joe Ben giving a little highlight about something that they've been able to leverage alongside of the partnership with Toyota. And again, this is after they've been working with each other for years and years. And even after that much development, that much time progressing, perfecting the process, you're going to hear Joe Ben reference pretty significant improvement and optimization. And I'll break that down here after I play the clip from Jobin. So a really important nugget there, Jobin talking about optimization that they're doing, both moving people and parts. But the 50% improvement, when we think about what does that actually mean, that's essentially, if a worker, let's say in their day, having to navigate through as they build composite parts and others, if they were to walk or cover 2 miles of ground this 50% improvement means that they're only now walking 1 mile versus 2. And what does that mean? Why does that matter? Well, that's time that's saved. So that means that you can make aircraft quicker. The less time that they're spending in transit also means that as they're moving parts, that's also less surface area for there to be parts that get dinged or damaged. So when you think about the optimization, it's both in the process, but in how people are going to be navigating these assembly lines. And I think that's really important. As we know, there's some pieces of this in terms of the composites and whatnot that will need human intervention, or humans will be doing some of the layup processes, et cetera. But to understand that Joby, this far stage of the game, their modular production system, where they're able to find 50% improvements, that is a pretty impressive piece of the puzzle for Joby to be able to scale this thing over time. But Jobin in that clip does mention TPS, so maybe if you want to close out to give your thoughts on TPS and where that fits into everything with the Strategic Manufacturing Alliance that they're going to be using with Toyota.
Yeah, so I think when you talk about TPS, it's really Toyota kind of pioneered this method of trying to create a comprehensive system to eliminate waste, and it tied into the Toyota philosophy of best quality and lowest cost, and all those good things. And I thought it was interesting, and maybe it's just the way that it was worded, but it seems like Joby is developing its own Joby production system in partnership with the Toyota production system, not just we're just grabbing your process. It seems like it's a true partnership. And I know we've talked about the way that Joby partners and how they've carefully screened potential partners for a way to be able to advance the Joby technology and obviously make it economically in the best interest of the partnership as well. And so being able to stitch all that together and hold your IP, things like that, I think are really bode well for the future for Joby. And I know you've really dug into some of those components in that contract and how the contract was written. I know some of the parts are redacted, but you have any thoughts on that, or do you want to sort of expand on that?
Yeah, no, I think for me, the biggest thing and what I'm going to do is actually put up outside of just the manufacturing. This is a link directly to Toyota's fully owned subsidiary, Aero Toyota. But you see their buy-in with Joby isn't just on the manufacturing side, but also to aviation. To your point of what does this partnership look like over time, if you dig into the 8K, where the $500 million investment was announced, and it was broken into essentially a first and a second tranche. We know that the first tranche of $250 million has already been actualized and received by Joby. That second tranche, we're waiting for that at any moment. But within that, we saw there were some specifics highlighted where Toyota's IP would be used, Joby's IP would be used. Sometimes it was used in tandem together. But also that there's some pieces that are redacted, as you alluded to, but that you can kind of take away from how it's worded that there's going to be, an initial purchase of aircraft, and that is Toyota purchasing them from Joby. And so when we think about, the manufacturing side, this is maybe a little nugget to close on, but I've thought for quite some time when we found out that there was a mock of the production facility that Joby has in Marina in Japan with Toyota that they're using to help fix and optimize some of these processes, as we talked about. I think that's probably how you get to a 50% reduction, because Joby's obviously cranking on their line. They don't have time to maybe be doing some of those things there. I think probably a lot of that's been happening at Toyota facilities in Japan. But to think about, wow, what happens if Toyota opens their own manufacturing facility? We know that the Toyota family, that was part of their original mission statement, well, even before automobiles. I think if we can see something like that happen, whether that's this year, next year, or just even at all, I think it changes the game, because then you have a line of revenue for Joby, both in selling the technology, but then also a partner and how it's operated. So a lot to dig in, but Toyota is obviously going to be a huge partner from the investment side for Joby, but also in manufacturing. But then, there's no sense to make all these planes if you don't have a place to fly them and to operate them. And I think that's where the vertical integration that Joby has also alongside of the production with Toyota is such a big piece. So anything else to close out a specific there on TPS or things that you're looking at into the future?
Yeah, I think it's another point of differentiation in the eVTOL space where you see this sort of, as Joe Ben describes it, shoulder to shoulder partnership. We know that there were Toyota employees working shoulder to shoulder with the Joby employees in the US. You alluded to the line that they're using in Japan, to the parallel line that they're using to kind of offer improvements. Again, this is the kind of partner you want, right? Like, and it's multiple years. I don't know the exact number of years, you probably do. So these things, as you've said many times, start years and years ago, just like the defense space where you're building confidence, you're figuring out things, you're working with your partners, and you're developing this together. But I think the part that excites me the most is in that 8K was the discussion around Joby owning its IP. And so while there may be sales or leases or co-developed products and things like that, it seems pretty clear in the document, the way that we talked about, we've talked about in the past, that Joby retains all of its IP. So that's amazing for the long term future.
I think you hit it right on the head. And just for some context too, right, is the initial investment or interaction from Joby and Toyota was all the way back in 2018. That was for $100 million round. It wasn't all just Toyota, but they were involved in that. And then later in 2018, in December, invested another 44 million. And of course, there's been several investments from the company since, but it just shows you, the longevity. We're looking at that partnership has been going closer to 10 years than it has 5. So that longevity from the company, something that I think has always been crucial for us as we've been, talking about this and thinking about what is it going to look like when there is this aircraft, not just doing a demo in front of Mount Fuji, but there's going to be Toyota employees there flying between facilities. So definitely a lot to keep an eye out on. And I think something both of us have been a bit anxious on. We're still kind of wondering what is the next milestone that is reached, until I think everybody should really keep tabs on when that second tranche of 250 million comes in from Toyota, because it feels like more and more as Joby's doing these demonstrations and whatnot, that that announcement of 250 might be announced. That second tranche might be announced alongside of some other news with Toyota. So great chatting with you on this one as always. More to keep track of with these signals from Toyota and Joby. But until next time, thanks again for digging in.